My path to Ron Paul, my origin story, is slightly different than most of you because it happened before you were born. I was a young student at a small college in Pennsylvania called Grove City College in the early 1980s. Perhaps one of the only places in America, maybe one of the only places in the world, that would actually use Ludwig von Mises' Human Action as Econ 301 textbook. And my professor was a guy named Dr. Hans Sennholz. And Dr. Hans Sennholz was a serious academic. He got his PhD from Mises, and he translated Bombard work for you Austrian dorks out there. But in his own words, he was a performer. He's like, if I want you to be interested in economics, Austrian business cycle theory, I have to be a performer. He'd say this in his thick German accent. And somewhere along the way, I don't know exactly the story, I want to ask Dr. Paul himself. Somewhere along the way, he found Ron Paul, or Ron Paul found Dr. Sennholz. And Dr. Sennholz, along with Murray Rothbard, was one of his mentors. And Sennholz kept telling me, there's this young congressman, you've never heard of him. His name's Dr. Ron Paul, and he's talking about honest money, and he's talking about the destruction of inflation, and he's talking about peace. So my introduction to Ron Paul was before the internet, so I couldn't just go on and watch his YouTube videos. I had to work my way to Washington, D.C. I would eventually work for an organization where he was the founding chairman, and eventually I would get to meet him when he was in Congress. Remember his name back then?
The 75-year-old obstetrician and Republican from Texas is known as Dr. No on Capitol Hill for his enthusiasm for bashing runaway spending and government overreach.
Dr. No. Because he was alone, and the best he could do inside the halls of power was just vote no. It's not quite like that anymore, is it? You have more people in politics, not that many. Sometimes they disappoint us, but I know a few. Shout out to Ron's son, Rand. Does a pretty good job. I feel like Congressman Thomas Massie has his thumb in the dike all alone right now. And I spent a lot of years trying to make politics a better place, trying to do good policy in Washington, D.C., mostly unsuccessfully. But the thing that I learned from Dr. Paul that has affected my entire career is that politics may be a dead end when it comes to public policy, but it's a great way to turn people on to ideas. I don't even know if Dr. Paul knew this, but every time he gave one of those talks in 2008, in 2012, at this point, social media is a thing. At this point, you don't need the mainstream media, the corporate media to tell you what to think. You can go out and figure it out for yourself. This guy with this intense sincerity, that was his performance. And it wasn't a performance at all. He wouldn't call himself an entertainer, but there was something uniquely refreshing about somebody in politics that sincerely believed what he was saying, that sincerely believed in the American people and sincerely believed that government was screwing up the lives of Americans and America, the country that he loved so much. His performance was his realism. We use the word authenticity now. It's abused because most people that claim the label really aren't that authentic at all. But what he taught me is that politics, the stage, can be a soapbox to turn people onto ideas. Harkening back to his mentor, Dr. Hans Sennholz, my professor at Grove City College, you could use a performance to get young people to Google this guy. What is Dr. Paul talking about? Ludwig von Mises? What is the Fed doing to our money? What is this foreign policy that aggravates our worst enemies and creates a cycle of death and destruction that continues and continues? Ron Paul did that. And yes, there are acolytes of Ron Paul in Congress, in the Senate, in the House, and there will be more before we're done. But the biggest revolution is you guys and the ability of all of us to understand the ideas that make the world actually work and to do something with them politics is downstream of culture. So we need more entertainers, we need more performers, we need more comedians, more politicians who are willing to speak truth to power, more music. But we need you guys to never lose hope and be as optimistic as Dr. Paul is to this day. Thank you so much.